This is an Alpacamade news brief. It's an unscheduled show. Minneapolis Precinct 3 burns. Headline on the clip that we're about to see says, "We have not seen this in our lifetime." And I beg to differ. Yes, we have seen this in our lifetime.
Sounds like we have Pat Kessler on the phone now.
Pat, please don't hang up on us again.
Yes, this is a very difficult night for everybody in Minnesota, everybody in Minneapolis and St. Paul, as we watch these protests grow. I think one of the big questions, guys, is why isn't the city stepping in of Minneapolis and St. Paul? Why isn't the state stepping in to stop this violence, these fires, these conflagrations, these takeovers of the Minneapolis Police Precinct? It is a very big question. We know that the governor's office has sent 500 National Guard troops tonight to the Twin Cities to try to tamp down this violence, this looting, the fires. But we don't see them anywhere in the city. We also see tonight that President Trump has entered the fray just a few minutes ago. He tweeted that he cannot stand back and watch this happen, in his words, to a great American city. He's attributing it to the radical left mayor, in his words, Jacob Fry. Let's set that aside for just a moment. Here's what's important here. He says that he has spoken to Governor Walz and told him that the military is available to come in and do it. But then the president says this, as any difficulty that happens from now on, he says the federal government will assume control. And he says this, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. So this is a very strong reaction from the President of the United States in the midst of this really terrible event that's happening in Minneapolis and St. Paul tonight.
In a subsequent clip, but still part of that same interview, the TV station brought on the chief of the fire department, and this is what he had to say.
We're talking about the 3rd Precinct, of course, Chief.
Yeah, I was at a fire earlier, just a few blocks down in the evening, and then we could see from our vantage point that there was a little more action going on up around closer to the 3rd Precinct building. So we've left that first fire we're at. Now we're waiting, and we did attempt to send in what we call a task force response. This is a response that's been modeled for these types of sort of civil unrest type of situations. We send them in a smaller group of firefighters and limit the number of apparatus. We tried to get in there, but the situation was just untenable.
When?
We've had this was probably an hour and a half ago, I'd say maybe a little more. We tried getting in. Rocks and different type of projectiles thrown at us now the last couple of nights, and it's made it very challenging. And certainly our number one priority is the safety of our firefighters. So when we have the situation where it's unsafe, we're just not going to we're going to make decisions not to enter. We're just going to back away. We are escorted in by law enforcement. We also have some National Guardsmen with us tonight, and they establish a small perimeter for us to function in.
I'm sorry, Chief. So where is this perimeter that you're saying the National Guard has established? Where are they?
That was just established for any particular fire we might have tonight in that area. They're gonna either National Guardmen will Guard personnel will escort the firefighters in, and or if they're not with us, then the Minneapolis Police Department will escort the crews in and establish a small perimeter. And I'm talking about maybe the size of an intersection, so we can at least get our vehicles in there and hook the fire hydrants and start applying water to the fires. And that's the challenging part there. There are so many people down there, and a lot of them feel the need to throw rocks and other things at us, and it becomes
and what was the government of Minnesota's response? The Hill reported this morning via CNN International the mayor's response, Mayor Fry from Minneapolis. Quote, "Weakness is pointing your finger at someone else during a time of crisis. Donald Trump knows nothing about the strength of Minneapolis," close quote. Mayor Jacob Fry responded to a tweet from President Trump, which we just heard the context of. Thursday marked the 3rd straight night of protests across Minneapolis over the death of George Floyd, a black man who died earlier this week after a police officer was seen in a video footage kneeling on his neck during an arrest. In the footage, Floyd can be heard saying, "I can't breathe." Minnesota Governor Tim Walz on Thursday activated the Minnesota National Guard in response to violent protests in Minneapolis. Thursday night, some demonstrators breached and burned the 3rd precinct in Minneapolis. The precinct was a base for the officers involved in Floyd's arrest. I could run a litany of riots and looting just from the last, 10 years, and it would all be familiar to you. I've put this picture, it's a still from the newscast, back up, because I want you to see, if you didn't notice, that there were incendiary projectiles being shot into this fire. The gas lines had been cut, but there was no way that this crowd was not going to complete the task of burning this police station down. This was a controlled, contrived burn. I think by now you should be able to see and understand the difference between what happened in Minneapolis this week and what happened in central Michigan last week. Massive flooding, massive loss of personal property, lives disrupted for the foreseeable future, and yet not one person died, nor did anyone loot and burn any city in central Michigan. There's a fundamental difference in mindset, and I'd like to leave you with that for this weekend to think about. Monday's show is a review of the aftermath of the flooding in central Michigan. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your support. I hope you have a good, peaceful weekend, and that you and yours remain in good health until I see you again.